Send them some advice to local people who desire to take a big risk, move, pursue their passion, even if it's just to blaze a new trail here at home.
I would say do it. I honestly believe there's never a good time to do anything. Like you can always push off starting a new business, push off having a child, push off, going back to school. But you just have to do it. Now is the time, and you never want to look back thinking, I wish I would have done that, or I should have done that. I didn't know I was being brave when I was being brave. I was scared to death moving out to California. I was scared to death driving to Warner Brothers and, getting lost. But somehow I didn't know. I was very courageous and I was very brave.
It's easy to get stuck on, am I going to fail or am I not going to fail?
Oh, yeah.
That's like a paralyzing lens to view the world through.
Right.
New Local Legends Podcast. Real small town success stories.
You have quite the lineups.
We believe that if people know better, they can do better.
When you kissed me by the river.
Sponsored by Glockner Enterprises.
As pies are made at Glockner Chevrolet.
Time to turn.
Rich Moon.
Welcome to the Speakeasy.
The amount of love and compassion.
The hope that's been bubbling up in the last few years.
The finer things about Portsmouth.
You just don't see that everywhere.
Local legends only.
Welcome back to the Local Legends Podcast. Today I'm in the Glockner Speakeasy with a local Hollywood legend. She's played a big part in producing the longest running multi-camera comedy show in TV history, as well as many other notable TV series from right here in Portsmouth, Ohio. This is episode 53 with Maile Millsap. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of
It's
course.
great to be here.
Introduce yourself, Maile, just the Wikipedia summary of who you are.
Okay, I'm Maile Millsap. I grew up in Portsmouth, Ohio. I went to Notre Dame High School. After high school, I went to Elon University in North Carolina. There, I had a double major in journalism and corporate communications and a minor in dance. And after college, I got my first job in Charleston, West Virginia at WCHS-TV, which is the ABC affiliate. And there I was an account executive. So I sold TV ads for the TV station.
Oh, wow.
And then I was there for 2 to 3 years before I decided to make the leap into moving to California to get into TV producing. And I've been there for the last 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's quite the jump from growing up in Sauter County to ending up across the country on the set of The Big Bang Theory, among other TV series, producing what's now considered to be one of the most successful sitcoms of all time. So talk to us about that journey a little bit. I mean, did you envision yourself working on a project like that? Was that always the goal, was to get in the television or?
No, not actually, but it's kind of funny because I notice my life is starting to mirror my parents' life.
Mm-hmm.
So my parents were both long-term employees for United Airlines.
Oh,
they were
wow.
based in LA when my two brothers, my sister, and I were all born. So I was born in LA, but we moved to Portsmouth when I was 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just crazy because I have done the same thing now. Looking back,
Yeah.
I never thought, once I got back to California, I never thought I'd be back in Portsmouth.
Right.
And I've been back for a year now. So it's been really exciting. I wanted to be a dancer when I grew up. That's what I spent my whole life in Portsmouth doing. I started competing probably when I was about 6 or 7 years old. And, I minored in dance because once I got into college, I realized maybe dance wasn't the career I wanted, but I wanted it as like a backup, as if like maybe I would start as a dancer and then like 10 years down the road, maybe I would go into journalism or work for Discovery or the Travel Channel or something like that. So I never thought I could work in Hollywood. It just seemed like too big of a dream, or, something that I wouldn't be able to achieve. It was just like such a big dream for me to have.
Of course, that's like, arguably the dream, that you always hear about.
Yeah.
It's like Hollywood.
Yeah.
So,
And then, so being in Charleston for a few years, I was like, yeah, I don't think I can see myself living here forever. If not now, why not now, So I just packed up and I had my truck shipped out to LA, and my truck that I got from Andy's Toyota, 2000 Toyota Tacoma.
Did it have the Glockner tag on it?
It said Andy's.
I still
like
see
old
those around
school.
town. Yeah, those are the best.
And it's actually still in California. Like I drove it. I've driven it for 20 years.
What was it?
I did 2000 Toyota Tacoma.
No way.
Yeah. And, that is like the best truck ever.
This is a hell of an advertisement right here.
Oh, yeah. Best truck ever. But, we would always make fun of my dad because he always bought his cars from Glockner, but he would keep them for like way longer than you needed to keep them. And we're like, Dad, they want you to like buy cars every few years, not keep them for 20.
For like a generation at a time.
And he would tell Mike, like, just put it in the showroom and just show them how great these cars are. But so that was always fun. But yeah, I'm just like my dad. I've had this car for 22 years. It's still in LA. But anyway, so just, I left with a hope and a prayer. And I was lucky enough to have an aunt who had some friends who worked in the entertainment business. And that's how I kind of got my in. She just sent some emails to some friends saying, my, niece is looking to get into the business. Do you guys have anything? And then one guy was like, yeah, I'm starting on a new show. Why don't you have her come in and interview?
Wow.
So that was in 2006. And it was on a show called The Class. It shot at the Warner Brothers studio lot. And, I'm like driving in my Toyota Tacoma really early because I had no idea what to expect. Of course, I got lost driving to Burbank. Like I got off on the wrong exit, didn't know where I was going. This is pre-GPS, MapQuest, or maybe I did print out MapQuest things. I'm not sure. But anyway, but yeah. Then they sent me to a place to park. I couldn't find the parking lot. So it was just like a disaster. And I was thinking, I'm never going to get this job. They're going to think I'm, the biggest loser. I can't even get there on time. But thankfully, they were running behind. So I sat there waiting, and I was there early. It ended up being. But yeah, so that was my first job as a production assistant on the show, The Class.
Wow. I'd like for you to talk a little bit, maybe what were your first roles and responsibilities as a production assistant?
Yeah, so production assistant is like the entry-level job in the production office. I'm making copies, answering the phones, going on runs. This is also when, everything was paper, so we're running around the lot with contracts or call sheets or production reports, doing runs from stage to the production office, going grocery shopping, organizing the kitchen,
wow.
Just like everything that nobody wants to do, that's what the production assistant does. And so looking back, I'm just so glad that that's where I started, because I obviously respect that work. And I, took great pride in it then. I was, I think, 25 years old when I was a production assistant. I thought I was so far behind because there's some people who start out at like 18 doing that job. And I was like thinking I was so old and starting so late. But now looking back, I'm like, no, it was fine. But maybe having a little bit of work experience before that kind of gave me a upper hand, because I just knew what it took to work hard, even if you're making coffee or going on coffee runs. Like, people will notice when you do a good job.
Yeah, and is it like, I mean, like the studio that you're working in, being Warner Bros, is like the budget and time frames so tight that like everyone's constantly staying on set, eating together. Is that kind of how it works?
Oh,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause when you're shooting, you're looking at like 12 to 14-hour days, and you're on a soundstage the entire time. So you're getting like bathroom breaks or 10-minute breaks here and there in between resets, but you're there like 12 to 14 hours a day, all day long.
Wow.
Yeah,
So, like, I guess, how did you excel, Maile? Did you, going from one project to another, were you working on the class for a long time, or kind of like what was your progression in the industry?
Well, it's funny you asked because the class was supposed to be the next Friends. It was an ensemble cast, and the creator was actually a co-creator of Friends.
Wow.
The producer was just coming off of Will and Grace, so it had like all of this like great buzz. You know? We even shot on the Friends stage, which is stage 24 at Warner Brothers.
Wow.
So we're like, oh yeah, we're gonna go for like 10 years. This is gonna be great. We lasted one season, didn't get picked up. So, and then that's the thing. It's like with these shows, you're not guaranteed a job like tomorrow. They would shut down a show today if they didn't like where the direction it was going in. So
Sure.
that was really crazy to like think that, I couldn't have a job at the end of the season or whatever, and the people I worked with in the production office were like, that's just the nature of the business. Don't worry. You'll find something after this. Something always comes up. And the UPM at the time, he'd been working for 20 years, and he said he'd never been on a second season show. And that made me want to like throw up. And like, I don't know if I can handle that. Like you went your whole career never having a second season show. And he's like, it just works out. You just have to believe and, think positively and stuff. And thankfully, I'm a very positive person. So I always do think that good is going to come about. And, I'm not thinking negatively about anything. But so after the class, one of my friends who was an assistant on the class, she already got hired on The Big Bang Theory as an assistant to the co-EP. So she gave my resume, with like two things. I have the class and WCHS TV and then college, like I still felt so inexperienced, even though I was still just a production assistant.
Yeah.
But so I walk in there and I knew other people from other shows on the lot. Cause like when you're a production assistant, you're running around like on golf carts and stuff, and you like meet other PAs,
right,
people in accounting, or just people all over the lot. And so that you always have people putting in good words for you and stuff. So I walk in and I like see other people I know who their shows got canceled too, and they've been in the business way longer than I have. So I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. And then I was so lucky because the line producer and the UPM were both from Hawaii. And I walk in and I was like, oh my gosh, it feels like I'm like hanging out with my like aunties, So my mom was born and raised on the Big Island of Hawaii. So that's how I get like my name. It's Hawaiian. But and then my dad's born and raised in Portsmouth. That's how I ended up here. But anyway, so going into interview at the Big Bang Theory, it really felt good. But still walking away, I was like, oh, I don't know if I'll get it. Da, 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 da.
Sure. But as you're, I like this concept that you bring up of like, if you make coffee well kind of thing, then then it's like a natural progression, like doing whatever the little task is, you know what I mean? Doing it with excellence kind of thing. So do you think that, was part of your success in excelling in the industry and getting these bigger gigs?
Of course. Doing the little things and always just keeping a positive attitude about it all. Like I take note of when people are taking out the trash, are they huffing and puffing, or are they just doing it because it's what needs to be done,
Yeah.
And that's what I look for when I hire people too, is just someone who has a positive attitude and will just get the work done and not complain about stuff. And that's kind of how I was. And I think people saw that in me and liked me to work with them. Like I was a pleasant person to work with, and I think that helped.
Yeah, of course. Well, let's talk about, your experience on The Big Bang Theory. Obviously, you got the gig.
I got the job.
But like when you're working on something like this, Do you feel like there were obvious signs as you're like at the beginning of stages of the show that indicated that this project was like something special? You know, did you feel like it was something special?
It felt special, like in the production office for me because of the producer, the UPM, other people that I was working with, my friend who recommended me, and there were other people's the editor, assistant editor, they were also on the class, and the director from the class, who is Jimmy Burrows, who's like the most famous director in television, he was also doing the Big Bang first episode. So I was like, oh, you know, I've done one show and I know people. Yeah. I know people here, you know? And that was kind of cool. It made me feel like, okay, you kind of know what you're doing a little bit, you know? And, but it felt special there. The actual show was still like trying to find its legs. You know, they had recast, or they had rewritten the pilot for what it was. They had already shot it. CBS didn't pick it up, but they gave them a second chance to like rework it. And that's when they brought in Kaylee Cuoco. So it was always Johnny, Jim, and I think originally it was like 2 other women. And then they got rid of those characters and they added the Penny character who like lives across the street from, or across the hall from them. And then that's what went and succeeded. But the fall of that first season is when the writer's strike happened. So the WGA was fighting. This is when it was all about new media, when you know, things from broadcast are now like online, and now you're starting to see like streaming services and things like that, or even like on demand. You know, you're not watching like in real time.
Right.
So the writers went on strike for like 100 days, and so in November of 2007, we were pretty much shut down. Everyone was like told to go home and, you know, come back when it's over. And I was like, of course, it's like my first year in the business. I'm like, what is happening? Does this happen a lot? Are strikes a thing? You know? Thankfully, my parents were living in Maui at the time. So, of course, I had like no money. So I just went and lived with my parents in Maui for the writer's strike. It was probably the best gig, just hanging out. And I think my brother was living there at the time, so it was really fun. Yeah.
But how long did that last?
It was 100 days, the strike. So I think we left in like November, and then we weren't even like allowed to come back onto the lot. So it was just like leave. And then I don't know, we came back March or something like that. And then I remember my UPM calling me. I was in Hawaii, and she's like, would you like to come back? I think we're going to be able to come back soon. I'm like, yeah, of course. Are you kidding me? And then during that time is actually when they started like replaying reruns of The Big Bang Theory, because there's no new shows, because no shows were being produced because all of the writers were on strike.
I didn't realize there was a point in time where this happened. That's cool. Yeah. Yeah.
So they're just showing reruns of shows, and that's actually how Big Bang got some of its popularity, is because there was no new shows, so people were like watching other shows.
Well,
you know?
it's also cool to hear, Maile, that like this thing that became a cultural phenomenon, you know, and when won 10 Emmys, you know, 12 seasons, like that it wasn't an initial success, like an instant success.
Not
you
at
know,
all.
they had rewritten the pilot,
Yeah.
they changed the, like
of course. Yeah, even I think it wasn't until like season 3 or 4 that it actually gained popularity. And you know, we always we were still hoping we would get picked up for another season. It wasn't until after season 4 that they started picking up, you know, 2 seasons at a time, 3 seasons at a time.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
These first 4 years were just like any other show, just hoping that we get another season.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you know, now like what The Big Bang Theory is it's just one of those shows that it feels so effortless, funny, entertaining. You know, people like put it on and fall asleep to it. Like, you know, it's like, but what I want to get from you is a better understanding of the effort that like goes into creating work like this, right? Where people, you know, spend countless hours of their life participating in it.
Yeah.
So can you tell us more about just the business of art, like what goes into a production like this to make something so lovable, because it's obviously intentional, you know?
Yeah. Well, you know, through the years, I was able to work my way up and, you know, get promotions, and that also took leaving the Big Bang Theory to get promotions. Because, by season 4, nobody was leaving because they knew we were getting picked up for 3 more seasons. So I actually left the show to get to be a production coordinator on another show. And it was at Warner Brothers. So it was good. I was just like next door or whatever. But so as the years, I've like risen through the ranks. So I can speak now as like a producer and a UPM, which is a unit production manager. But so my responsibilities now are more like managerial. So instead of, making the coffee, I get the coffee made for me. No, just kidding. That sounds horrible.
That's awesome.
No. But just I'm in charge of the entire crew. All the departments have department heads, but I would deal with all of the department heads, let them know what is going on with the scripts, give them heads up, hire, fire. Financially, I created all the budgets for the show, and then we have to make sure every episode is different. Like our goal is whatever's written on the page of the script, we have to make sure it's like that on your TV or screens now. So that's my job, is to make sure that we stay on budget once I create it. Financially, I would sign every paycheck, every purchase order, every cent that would go through the show, I would have to approve and sign.
Wow.
And that goes along the same lines with like scheduling, because, every day we're employing hundreds and hundreds of people. So every minute costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
So after creating the schedule, whether it's for the season or for the day or for the week, it's my job to make sure that we stay on schedule, we stay on track. The train is moving, so it's my job to make sure like that train doesn't crash or burn.
Well, do you feel like you were prepared for that role, or was it initially really overwhelming? Like, what were your action steps to manage?
I think I was definitely prepared because of the 4 years that I was at the Big Bang Theory. One of my mentors was the producer there, Faye. She had worked in the business, 20, 30 years. Everyone really respected her. She did a really great job. She was very kind to everyone that she worked with. And I looked up to her like, that's the kind of producer I want to be. Like, she gets her stuff done and everyone respects her. She doesn't have to be rude or mean to get the job done. And, I would say I would be working for Faye, and it wouldn't matter what show this person was on. They would always have some great things to say. So that was one of the things, like, she prepared me, because I think she knew. She was like, well, they kind of like trained and prepared me to move on, because they're like, you can go on and do great things on your own. You don't have to like stay on the show forever and just like, ride the coattails of the show. Granted, that would be very easy, and, you don't have to work as hard once a show is established. It just kind of like runs itself a little bit. But they always encouraged me to like do more. And so I feel like they really trained me to be prepared. Even going off as a coordinator, I was prepared to be a producer.
Do you remember specific things that Faye taught you that were like light bulb moments? Anything?
Oh, gosh. Honestly, just watching her work through example. I was her assistant at one time. So I was sitting outside of her desk, and I would listen to every phone call that she had, and, just how she treated me as an assistant, and how she always wanted to like bring people in, have them work their way up. Like, that was always something that I learned from her. It was just by example.
Yeah, it really is amazing. What it sounds like you're saying, it's amazing how like that emotional intelligence people have, just like with treating people with respect, like soft skills end up making like one of the biggest differences in the end. You know?
For sure.
I think I feel like every creator experiences it. There's often like a disconnect between what you're creating and passionate about, and other people's interest in it. At some point, you're going to experience like it, and it's natural to ask the question: why don't people care about this business artwork or story or book like I do? Right? Like this thing that I'm making, pouring my heart into. And I think especially in the early stages of a project, it's something that really discourages people from continuing to create and push and evolve. And maybe you felt that way initially, like getting into the business, the one guy telling you, he's never had like anything that's gone past the first season.
Right.
Those kind of things can be discouraging. So what advice would you give to local people about how they can create something that other people would like want to participate in, like some of the shows you've worked on?
Well, honestly, I feel like if you believe in yourself, if you believe in what you're creating or the product that you have, just like keep going at it, Not everyone can find success immediately. And a lot of times it takes a lot of, hard work, determination, and just like commitment to what you're creating and what you have. So like if you think that you can do it, just do it. Because, there's nothing like the present. I just always thought like, granted, there are times that, you put things off because you're scared or you're down and out or whatever, but I believe there's never a good time. I mean, there's never a right time, Things just happen for a reason. They happen sometimes without you even having any control over it. That guy with like never having a second season. That's not because he's doing a good or a bad job. It's because of the shows that he's working on are not getting picked up, So I think if you are interested in what you're doing or believe in what you're doing, you just keep on doing it. Yeah.
And even the example in, like you said, the Big Bang pilots being rewritten, I think that's a good example of the creative process. Like I think we romanticize this idea of like, I'm going to create this thing and everyone's going to love it like right off the bat. But sometimes it really does take feedback and collaboration and reworking a lot of it. You know what I mean? Just more time to like season the idea kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll be married to an idea. You're married to, exactly what you want. You think it's perfect. But then you maybe have some friends or mentors or whatever give you some notes and you see things in a different light and you're like, oh yeah, that's actually a really good idea. Or, find that in like writing and
right.
a lot of things.
And that's powerful with this a powerful example, the things that they're creating at Warner Brothers Studio. There's like obviously groups of writers or writer rooms or it's very collaborative, like the projects you're working on. So that's really the power of that.
Right.
Like that's why they're creating such valuable
definitely.
media.
Yeah. And then you have notes coming in from the studio and the network that, the writers are always like, our ideas are better, but they're the ones that like sign that final approval. So sometimes they have to take the notes and then sometimes they dismiss them, but it is a collaboration for sure.
Are there any other like values, principles that you feel like have helped you be successful in your career, rise to the ranks, and build this kind of 15-year dream?
Yeah, well, kind of like what I was talking about, starting from the bottom. I was making coffee, doing runs. I was always hardworking. I always had a good attitude. I was just trustworthy, and people could rely on me. You know, if I had to open up the office at 4:30 a.m., like I could do that, and they would know I would be there. I'd get the coffee going. I think these are all very important, skill sets. I remember my first time like leaving home for my first job out of college. My dad, he gave me three things for advice. Starting off, he said, always tell the truth, do the right thing, and don't take any crap from anybody. And I can honestly say, like, pretty much have always told the truth. I think I always do the right thing. But I think also being a female, young, in Hollywood, I definitely took some crap from people that I wish now looking back, I'm like, I should have said this or that,
Sure.
So that's something that, like, as you grow older, you kind of like get more courage to stand up for yourself. And, especially if you're dealing with people who are like, 25 years older than you think I should be respectful, or I'll just not say anything in return, but so that's one of the things that I've worked on as I've, gained more confidence in my career.
Well, yeah, I think that's what it is I can relate to that. Like when your self-esteem is lower, you don't really feel like you have the place to say something that's important,
Yeah. Or even if your experience, like I only have 6 years experience and this person has 35 years experience,
Right.
But then you just learn to finally speak up for yourself after more experience.
Well, what about books, literature, articles, media, anything that you feel has impacted you that you'd recommend to a friend to read that's contributed to your success? I mean,
well, the first thing that comes to mind, it's an older book, Lean In, written by Sheryl Sandberg, who's the CEO of Facebook. Mm-hmm. She talks a lot about exactly what I was just talking about. Women sitting at the table, the conference table. Don't take that seat in the back. Sit at the table. There's a reason why you're there. Speak up. Know your worth. Things like that. Which to read, and probably like 10 years ago, it was probably just like a really important time in my career too, where it's just kind of feeling like I was advancing in a way that I was like finally the boss, and I needed people to respect me because although I looked like I was 25, I wasn't, but that book actually gave me a lot of the confidence, as a female, as a woman in production, that my voice matters. And she also talked about, which is important now for me, is like the balance of family and work, to have like high stress jobs that require you to be there 24/7, or at least to be on 24/7, like how to balance with your family. She just, talked about setting boundaries for yourself, setting your expectations, let your family know exactly when and where you're going to be, when and where you'll be there, let work know when and where you'll be there.
Right.
And just try to have like a guideline of what everyone needs to expect from you at home and at work.
Man, that's awesome. Yeah, because do you feel you're talking about 12 to 14-hour days? Is that something you had to learn over time? It was like tricky to manage at first, kind of your personal life, those relationships you value in this really high demand job.
Yeah, well, in the beginning, like I just committed my entire life to my job, so if I had to work, that's all I would do. I would never call off or, I wasn't taking vacation. I wasn't taking days off. You don't take days off in production. You're just there.
Yeah.
And you're there all day long. And so it really changed a lot when I had my daughter, like 2.5 years ago, because, I was ready. I found out I was pregnant. I was doing a pilot. And then a month before I gave birth to Luna, I was doing a pilot. And then
what was the pilot?
Well, the first one I was doing, it was Patty's Auto, and it was at Warner Brothers, and it was about female mechanics who had like a shop, and they just like were ruling the world. And of course, it was an awesome pilot. I was like, this is gonna go. This is great. Didn't get picked up, and then. I think a couple months later, we did the Nate Bargatze pilot, and he's a comedian. Actually, he's from like Nashville, Tennessee,
really?
And he's like so fun and down to earth. So I'm like 8 months pregnant doing this pilot, and we had such a good time doing that. That didn't get picked up, and then I had Luna in October, and then a few months later, Call Me Kat comes along, and this was starring Mayim Bialik, who was on The Big Bang Theory, and it was actually like a great pilot show. Everyone was in a bidding war for it. So Fox actually picked it up, bought it for a pilot plus 12 episodes.
Wow.
Which normally they just do the pilot, see if it's good, they test it, see how it does. But because it was Mayim and she's coming off of The Big Bang Theory, Fox was like,
itself,
we'll take it,
yeah.
And then I was actually working with one of the producers from The Big Bang Theory on it. So it was she and I now, running the ship. And then 3 weeks into production, COVID hit, and we're shut down. Everyone go home. Similar to like the writer's strike, except,
Sure.
I mean, very similar because we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know if we were going to be gone for like a week or 3 months or what, and
How long did you end up being gone?
Well, that was in March, that same week of March where everyone shut down. And then we actually came to Portsmouth to hang out during the summertime and just loved it. And I started working from home here in Portsmouth, like say July. And then I was back in LA in August, ready to revamp the production offices, open up the stage again, and get rolling again. And then that's when, we had spent the summer in Portsmouth, enjoyed our time here. And then after the pilot, I actually gave up those first 12 episodes to leave Call Me Kat and to move back to Portsmouth at that time.
Wow.
So, and a lot of that had to do with, being able to spend more time with my daughter. She was only 6-8 months, not even a year old yet. And I got to have that time with her. And I just thought, you know what? I'm never going to get this time back. And especially before school years, I'm like, why not take the time to spend with her and, enjoy life with her. When I was in LA, I had a nanny who was there for the 14 hours. And I was like, that's just not fair to any of us that someone else is taking care of our child,
Yeah.
So that was like a big sacrifice I made for our family. But I think in the end, it's totally worth it.
Oh,
and,
of course.
At the end of the day, there's always going to be another show that I can work on, but I'll never get those years back.
That's
with
true.
her.
Yeah, and that's powerful, Maile. I remember, like, Mike Glockner saying one time that, because the people before him, his ancestors, granddad, father, they just all worked so hard. And it was like there was something to be said about just less flexibility like that, and remote work wasn't a possibility. It was just like a different time. But that I think we get these preconceived notions in our head of like how we need to live our life because of those things in the past. But I think it's really, you had a lot of presence of mind to realize that is not how you had to raise your family.
Right.
So that's
and
powerful.
like moving back to Portsmouth, I was able to pivot. I was like, I have to be doing something. I can't just take care of my daughter all the time. That is like the hardest job in the world, by the way.
Yeah.
There's been days where I'm like, gosh, I wish I was on set for 16 hours today. It'd be a lot easier,
That is the truth, man.
Yeah. But, and then since being back, I've worked to develop projects. I've been trying to develop projects here in Portsmouth for years, and it just takes a lot of time. And so being back here has helped me be able to really get into it, and hopefully we'll start rolling cameras again soon. So instead of being on that production side on a soundstage, I'm working to highlight some of the comeback stories here in Portsmouth. Being in LA, I always stayed in touch with friends and family here, so I always knew what was going on. But it felt weird that people were telling Portsmouth story who weren't from Portsmouth. So I was like, I should be doing that. Like, what the heck? People trust me. Those are my people. Why not me? So that's what I've been working on now in the interim. So
that's awesome. Can you share any more about that? Or if not, that's okay.
Probably not. I mean, no, I shouldn't. And you can cut that out if you want, because I'm like, because it's in the development stages, it's like so hard. And, I just, it's like always taking a different route,
Sure. Well, no, that's exciting to hear that you're like using these talents and bringing them to like a place that means so much to you. That's really awesome.
Well, and that's the thing. I figure I've made enough connections in LA that hopefully, kind of like you were saying, like if you're creating something that other people don't quite get, or they're not passionate as you are, like this is kind of my passion project now. It's like, come on, people, like this is amazing stories, these are amazing stories. People are doing wonderful things here, and I want to show that.
Well, that's an interesting point to touch on, Maile, is like I feel like people in Appalachia in general, just like these rural cities, river cities, we like disqualify ourselves real easily from like any kind of spotlight, any kind of value. I was reading Brad Feld's book, Startup Communities, and he was talking about how like even rural entrepreneurs, like people that live in these little 20,000 person cities, like even if they are entrepreneurs, have their own business, they like don't label themselves that way. Like they don't talk, they don't consider themselves an entrepreneur, you know, and that just speaks to, there's just like this really humble persona that Appalachian people have that would just like, what, why would anyone want to watch our life or like film us or, you know what I mean? But it is certainly, rich with storytelling and value and
and I feel like everyone is from a hometown or not always a small town, but everyone, even if you live in LA or whatever, you have your little neighborhood where you grew up and like same value, a lot of the same values that we have here, and that's why I feel like everyone can relate to our stories, across America, even the world, the challenges of, starting new businesses or, having stores shut down and trying to rebuild your town. I just think it's a common narrative that like everyone can benefit from.
Yeah. And I think just like the experience that you're bringing here, Maile, and kind of leveraging this new economy that we're in, this bottom up, like we can do it ourselves kind of remote way to do it is like, maybe you can highlight things that I've never been able to be created before. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's super exciting.
Yeah. I'm very excited. And that's one of the, big projects that I'm working on now too. But like you said, the Appalachian girl in me, I've never said that before, but I'm very humble in the term, like way I don't really talk about that much. It's not like I'm like posting on social media what I'm doing or what I'm trying to do or anything like that.
That's one of my favorite things about you, Maile, is that I cannot find you on social media.
Really? Good. Okay.
that is a star for me. I mean, that's cool.
Well,
if you can live your life that way, I think that's says a lot about you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm somewhat of a private person, but once I know you, I'm an open book.
Yeah.
But I don't want the whole world to know me, if that makes sense,
There's some real value in that.
Yeah.
Maybe just let's end with some advice to local people who desire to take a big risk, move, pursue their passion, even if it's just to blaze a new trail here at home. Like, what would you say to them as someone that's accomplished a lot in just taking those risks?
Yeah, I would say do it. I kind of touched on this earlier. There's no time but the present. So I honestly believe there's never a good time to do anything. Like you can always push off starting a new business, push off having a child, push off, going back to school. But like you just have to do it. Now is the time. And you never want to look back thinking, I wish I would have done that or I should have done that. And also, like, you might fail sometimes. So just don't be too scared. I mean, I didn't know I was being brave when I was being brave. I was scared to death moving out to California. I was scared to death driving to Warner Brothers and, getting lost. But somehow I didn't know. I was very courageous and I was very brave, but I don't realize that until now. So just do it. Do whatever you want that will make you happy and like whatever makes you feel fulfilled.
I heard someone in passing one time just say, and it just resonated with me. It said, "Don't do it for the moral, do it for the story," kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is like, basically what I'm saying is it's easy to get stuck on, am I going to fail or am I not going to fail?
Oh, yeah.
And that's just like a paralyzing lens to view the world through.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, hopefully you don't fail, but there are many times that you will. But you just have to
and learn from those things.
Oh,
and like even all those shows that don't get picked up, Maile, you're building like an incredible skill set that contributes to whatever is going to be your success. You know, that's an important part of the process.
Yeah, and another part of that too is like, I'm building relationships with people on these different shows. So even if it only goes for 20 episodes, I know a whole new group of crew members that I will probably be working with again, a a few years down the road.
Right.
So you just kind of build relationships, and then like even in your hometown, build relationships, and then you can collaborate eventually and, make some really great things happen.
Well, Maile, we're very excited to have your family here. I'll speak for the listeners.
Oh, thank you. I'm very happy to be back.
And thank you for sharing your story. I think a lot of people are going to get value out of this, and we're super excited to see what you do in the future. So,
Good. Thanks for having me.
thanks for listening, everybody.
Portsmouth, Ohio.